When I was a kid, the disaster we worried about most was a nuclear war.
Global deaths expected to hit 2 million today.
We're not ready for the next epidemic.
The crucial thing is to never stop thinking and working, and never do what we did with malaria and tuberculosis in the 20th century, which is to surrender to complexity and quit.
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes.
Even as countries race to vaccinate their populations, the COVID-19 death toll continues to rise at an alarming rate.
We've invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic.
Never seen so many ambulances queuing, and I've never spent such extended periods of time with people waiting for a space.
Over the last 3-4 weeks, the majority of patients are now coronavirus.
And take a nice deep breath.
Every region in England has more people in hospital now than they did in the first wave.
The problem wasn't that there was a system that didn't work well enough. The problem was that we didn't have a system at all.
Across the world, countries are facing a second or even third wave of infections, with many governments tightening even further the lockdowns already in place.
Now, Médecins Sans Frontières did a great job orchestrating volunteers, but even so, we were far slower than we should have been getting the thousands of workers into these countries. And a large epidemic would require us to have hundreds of thousands of workers.
Having higher numbers of staff and frontline staff who are off sick or isolating or have tested positive themselves. I've just finished 10 days of isolation because my wife tested positive, so she's also a paramedic. The personal protective equipment that we were wearing was, from our perspective, not quite enough, and a number of our friends and colleagues were in the same situation, and they've also tested positive over the last few weeks.
The failure to prepare could allow the next epidemic to be dramatically more devastating than Ebola. As an example, we could have taken the blood of survivors, processed it, and put that plasma back in people to protect them. But that was never tried. So there was a lot that was missing, and these things are really a global failure. The WHO is funded to monitor epidemics, but not to do these things I talked about.
Hospitals in the southeast are now cancelling what are called 28-day cancer surgeries. The people who've had their surgeries cancelled are now having to wait at home knowing that their tumour's growing. And for some of them, by the time it's safe again, they might not be operable anymore.
Let's look at the progression of Ebola over this year. About 10,000 people died, and nearly all were in the 3 West African countries. There's 3 reasons why it didn't spread more. The first is there was a lot of heroic work by the health workers. They found the people and they prevented more infections. The second is the nature of the virus. Ebola does not spread through the air. And by the time you're contagious, most people are so sick that they're bedridden. Third, it didn't get into many urban areas, and that was just luck. If it had gotten into a lot more urban areas, the case numbers would have been much larger. So next time we might not be so lucky. You can have a virus where people feel well enough while they're infectious that they get on a plane or they go to a market. The source of the virus could be a natural epidemic like Ebola, or it could be bioterrorism. And so there are things that would literally make things 1,000 times worse. In fact, let's look at a model of a virus spread through the air like the Spanish flu back in 1918. So here's what would happen. It would spread throughout the world very, very quickly. And you can see there's over 30 million people die from that epidemic. So this is a serious problem. We should be concerned. But in fact, we can build a really good response system. We have the benefits of all the science and technology that we talk about here. We've got cell phones to get information from the public and get information out to them. We have satellite maps where we can see where people are and where they're moving. We have advances in biology that should dramatically change the turnaround time to look at a pathogen and be able to make drugs and vaccines that fit for that pathogen. So we can have tools, but those tools need to be put into an overall global health system, and we need preparedness.
New strains of the coronavirus, which scientists believe are more transmissible, have been blamed for the surge in infections.
So those are the kinds of things we need to deal with an epidemic. What are the key pieces? First is we need strong health systems in poor countries. That's where mothers can give birth safely, kids can get all their vaccines, but also where we'll see the outbreak very early on. We need a medical reserve corps. Lots of people who've got the training and background who are ready to go with the expertise. And then we need to pair those medical people with the military, taking advantage of the military's ability to move fast, do logistics, and secure areas. We need to do simulations, germ games, not war games, so that we see where the holes are. The last time a germ game was done in the United States was back in 2001, and it didn't go so well. So far, the score is germs 1, people 0. Finally, we need lots of advanced R&D in areas of vaccines and diagnostics. There are some big breakthroughs, like adeno-associated virus, that could work very, very quickly.
For the last few months, the city-state has seen just a handful of COVID-19 cases, mostly from international arrivals. And crucially, when a person tests positive, they're taken to a community facility where they must isolate until testing negative.
If you want to inspire people to participate, you have to show more than numbers. You have to convey the human impact of the work so people can feel what saving a life means to the families affected.
The Singapore government is taking a very cautious approach to easing measures. Any signs that COVID-19 cases are rising, and officials won't hesitate to ramp up restrictions once again.
We need to get going because time is not on our side. In fact, if there's one positive thing that can come out of the Ebola epidemic, it's that it can serve as an early warning, a wake-up call to get ready. If we start now, we can be ready for the next epidemic.
And his style of play marked by finesse that has led many to call Curry soft.
I mean, I've heard that talk for sure, and I had a different upbringing than a lot of players in the NBA. I've had similar upbringings to some people in the NBA, so I'm not by myself in this situation. But I don't know what's in people's minds, how they label me, how they perceive me. I know what I'm about. I know, how I view myself and life and my style of play on the basketball court. And so whether you think I'm soft, or you think I'm tough, or you think